Hey, good morning, Cruk. This is a demo for your Infinity Gauntlet custom flagship. Normally, I would do a couple of your sabers and then I would make a demo for you because I've got a handful to do. But this one kind of deserved a demo all on its own. I put a lot of work into this. I've probably been working on this on and off for about a week to a week and a half, getting everything install ready and then finally installing it this morning. When you sent this to me, it's my understanding from you that you bought it on the secondhand market and it was gutted. Everything was gutted except for the switches and then the LEDs that were in here and then the wiring for the LEDs. I did have to go through and replace a lot of the wiring. I couldn't take out the switches though, and I couldn't really take out the LEDs either. I went and tested the LEDs. There's 6 of them, by the way, 6 stones for the Infinity Gauntlet. Tested all the LEDs. All of them were working except for the red one. So the red one was burnt out. Went to go to try to replace that. I'm not going to take the shrouds off now because there's wires under them and it's all installed. But when I went to go take the shroud off to get to the red LED, um, these things were, they were gorilla glued in, they were super glued in, they were liquid electrical taped in, all that on top of each other. It was impossible to get the LED out. What I had to do, I had to grind it on the back to nothing so that it was just a piece of the lens left. Wired in a brand new red LED, and then I had to glue it back. I had to glue it back behind the original one. So when you light this up, or when I light it up here in a second, you'll notice that this red one lights up a bit differently than the rest, and that's the reason why. I couldn't get that out. I had to put an LED behind it. These things are not coming out. Everything about this kind of reminds me of like an old school install, the stuff that we used to hear about, right? But we don't really do anymore, or at least not in my time, right? The switches also were Gorilla glued in and super glued in. And if you don't know much about Gorilla Glue, once you use it and you let it cure, it bubbles up. It expands to about 3 times the amount that you put it in. I mean, it kind of gets everywhere. But I mean, the good news is the switches aren't coming out and the LEDs aren't coming out. All right. You also had an old school 7-pin custom Saber Shop connector in here for your NeoPixel. So I took that out. I took the holder out. I modeled a new holder. Put these CC Sabers in here so you'll have some light and some shine through. This is pretty. These are pretty typical of what I put on all my installs anyway. So you got that for your NeoPixel connector. Um, didn't have a chassis or anything like that, right? So I just had the wires hanging out. So to get to the chassis, what you want to do is just unscrew the handle. It is pretty tight. This is an older version flagship, I think one of the first versions. And those IDs of the handles were just a little smaller than what we have today from Call over at KR Sabers, but everything still fits. Okay, I wanted to make sure I put that 28 millimeter in there. And in order to put a 28 millimeter in there, it's going to be a snug fit, but it does fit. I went through in here. You're not going to see it on camera, but when you see it in person, you'll see lots of sandpaper and filing and stuff like that inside this handle to make sure that this 28 millimeter speaker fit into this guy so you have the maximum amount of sound. All right. Pretty typical for your install. I've got the stock font package on here, but on this one I also put ignition redux on here just because I like the way that it lights everything up. So I wanted to show you that on the demo. But here is your chassis now. So you got a removable battery, spring side over here. That 28 millimeter Smuggler's Outpost Elite that I was talking to you about. It does say Solo Sabers over here for me, and you've got 6 little stones right here is what that's meant to look like. Over here, I just put the Infinity Gauntlet on the actual chassis, and then it has the Avengers logo right here on your chassis. All right. Your Proffie board is adhesed down to the shelf, but you can get to your SD card and your micro USB from here. You never have to move the board. And then, of course, a copy of the config file is on your SD card. 2-button setup. So this main switch, this dome tactile here is your activation. Switch it over here, and you'll see another dome tactile on the back. That is your auxiliary. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll throw a battery in. These LEDs are wired for sound, so they react to sound together. All right. I did go through and they weren't resisted at all. So I went through and I resisted all 6 LEDs according to what the color called out for. So everything's resisted, everything's working fine now. When you go to put the handle on, be very careful. Just go nice and slow, okay? Because like I said, it is a snug fit. So just take your time. You'll get to a certain point where that speaker reaches the other side of the handle and it's free. All right, so then you can go ahead and you can just screw the handle on. I don't know exactly who etched the saber. I don't know who installed it before me. I don't know any of that stuff. I'm just telling you in this demo the things that I saw and that I ran into and why it took me a week and a half to do it. All right. We'll turn the light off. Now we've got the handle on. We can go ahead and come over here and hit activation. Now you can see that red LED right there is what I'm talking about. So I had to glue that behind the original one, and that's why you get a little bit different shine through. It's not so bad in person as it's picking up on camera, but it is obviously visible. But all of them are lighting up. All of them in here. Very loud. And then I gave you twist off, and we'll go ahead and we'll throw a blade in here. This saber takes a 1-inch diameter blade, but you do not get the full blade depth that you would normally get from a flagship. If you look in there, you can see that that PCB holder is somewhere around this area right here. That is because the wiring for this LED and this LED goes straight into the emitter and then down. So I couldn't go past that wiring, but you still have plenty of room in there. You would have more room in here than you have for a thin neck. Actually, I can tell you how much room we've got right now. You got 1.15 inches, so that's plenty of room for blade depth, okay? We'll go ahead and we'll throw a blade in this guy. Lock it down. Your blade retention is right above the green LED. Very solid now. Blade lockup. So per usual, blade lockup is holding down the aux and hitting the saber. See it right here. Now it's here. Now it's here, right? And of course, the rest of these are the stock font package. Smooth Jedi. You can see when you switch sound fonts how the LEDs react to sound. We'll do that again. Smooth gray. Nice fire blade. Playing your soundtrack is a long press on the power. And of course, you'll get your LEDs when you play your soundtrack. And the same thing to turn it off. Just a long press on the power. Smooth fuzz. Get your blue fire blade here. Good flash on cloud. And turn it off just like that and take the blade out. Everything in here now is working exactly like it should. When we're all done, we'll just go ahead and again unscrew the handle. Be careful. It does help when it's snug to twist the handle as you're putting it on or twist it as you're taking it off, and it just helps a little bit. But when you're all done, you can come over here from the positive side of the battery by the speaker, and you should be able to pop it out with your finger just like that. And that is basically your Infinity Gauntlet flagship. Let me know if you got any questions, and if not, I will put these with your other sabers. All right, thanks.